The institution of slavery is not inherently evil. I know. Some of you guys are upset by that. Some of you guys are saying, I've been saying that for years. Okay, I'll take it a step further. It is not inherently evil to own another human being. I know. Just wait. Some of you guys are really upset, but let's talk through this because it is very important that every Christian affirm what I just said. And not only should they affirm it, every Christian in today's society should be able to defend what I just said. Okay? Every Christian should be able to defend it. Big evangelicalism has been getting this wrong for years. Basically, since the advent of Big Eva. They haven't had a good answer for the slavery issue. All right, Christians in America have been led astray on this topic. They've been led to believe things that the Bible doesn't teach. And when we go beyond the Bible, there are dire consequences. What I just said.
I mean, not only is this the exact same logic people use to justify the transatlantic slave trade, but also anyone who's trying to convince you that the Bible is univocal, meaning it's a seamless, singular voice speaking in unbroken moral clarity, is an idiot or they're lying to you.
Christians in America have been led astray on this topic. They've been led to believe things that the Bible doesn't teach.
Every modern-day Christian is in constant negotiation with the text, meaning everyone cherry-picks what they think is relevant based on their own biases. Meaning if someone uses the Bible to justify slavery, but never follows the rules about mixing fabric or stoning kids, they're not some super rule-following Christian. They're just racist.
To own another human being.
This is a fantastic example as to why we shouldn't get our morality from a 2,000-year-old book. It's another great example as to why we shouldn't base society's laws and government off of a 2,000-year-old book. You get your morals from a 2,000-year-old book, you are keeping your morals stagnant. And contrary to popular belief, your morals should not be stagnant. If you are taking in new information, you should be able to apply it to your morals and values. Because the more we learn about certain things, the better we can adjust. Hey, this isn't good, or this is better, or whatever it is. But going by this book, make sure that you stay in the same headspace somebody had 2,000 years ago, and that's a problem if you want to, progress, which a lot of Christian nationalists don't want to. But he is right. The Bible doesn't condemn slavery. That's why I don't think we should go by the Bible, because God gave a handbook on how to have slaves. And he directly condoned it. And there will be people who bring up Bible verses about not being able to kidnap people and make them slaves. That's not the same as saying slavery can't be a thing. It describes perfectly chattel slavery in the Bible and how to do it, how to sell, how to buy, how to keep them for life, how to pass them on to your children. This is exactly why we shouldn't be getting our morality from a 2,000-year-old book. This is about the 5th Christian video I've seen within the past couple weeks saying it's perfectly fine to own another human being. Slavery is fine. It can be good if slaves are good and masters are good, whatever the hell that means. The type of environment we're living in is making more and more people comfortable with saying things like this because people are becoming desensitized to what Christian nationalists are advocating for, and that's a scary thing.
The Bible does
That
condone slavery.
That does not mean that I agree with instituting slavery.
But that's not what I said. I said the Bible condones slavery. You said, no, it doesn't. I brought up a passage where Paul says, slaves obey your masters. You said, I agree with the Bible.
He does not say in the book of Philemon. Right? In the book of Philemon, what happens in the book of Philemon? Do you know?
I'm asking you to, I gave you a passage.
What happens in the book of Philemon?
Hold on. You are very good at this. You keep moving the goalposts, okay?
How am I moving the goalposts? We're still talking about slavery. I have allowed you to go around and around about slavery.
I'm not gonna let it go. Paul says slaves to obey your masters.
Yes.
Do you agree with Paul on that?
Wives submit to their husbands, and this is all in the context of children submitting to their fathers. That does not mean that as an institution that he is condoning slavery. He's saying it's good. I think we can read God's heart behind that.
Well, that's a deep interpretation. That's not in the text.
What was not in the text?
Well, like I said, I'm going to hammer it again. Paul
he's not saying that slavery is good.
Paul knew what was going on. He could have condemned it. Yes.
You think he's saying that slavery is good?
Because Paul's a part of this time.
Let's talk about a different kind of slavery that existed, which was bondservant, for example. So people were in debt, and so to pay their way out of debt, sometimes they would have bond service for a certain amount of time to pay their way into freedom. It was not always the same as the chattel slavery that we see in the 19th century in America, for example.
Yep.
And so it was a different context, and it was a different time. That does not mean that any of us should condone slavery.
All I want to say is that you perfectly gave the framework for why we don't believe that homosexuality in the Bible is the same thing as it is today.
Many a times things go wrong, but I've never seen such problematic situation where somebody just comes out and say that, slavery is not bad and what black people went through is not bad, right? I'm talking about this white man that comes and claims that, as Christians, come think about it, slavery is not a bad thing. But we understand the devastating effects that this was having towards black people of the United States and how it has shaped the lives of people. People don't understand the devastating effects that slavery has come with. And while I was watching this video, I was trying to ask myself a couple of questions because that was so mind-blowing. My mind cannot, that was just crazy. A person coming out and tries to justify how racism is a good thing to them and how they believe that black people are rightfully in a place where they are. Somebody don't know the devastating effects that black people had to go through throughout all those 500 years to come back and still talk about that openly without no consequences. That's how they think. And so, brothers and sisters, a couple of people came and talked about this issue. And I was just trying to ask myself this question because he talked about Christianity. But come think about it as a Christian. Slavery is not a bad thing, quotes and quotes, if I haven't added or subtracted something, right? And this makes me question, what was the place of Christianity? What role did Christianity play to perpetuate slavery? That's going to be our discussion today. And brothers and sisters, honestly, I really don't know what you think about this. I'm not trying to be subjective about this or trying to push Christianity to the world. I'm a Christian. But at the end of the day, we need to talk about these things. We need to call our beliefs out. We need to, just try and think clearly in regards to all these things that are happening right now, brothers and sisters. So that being said, I want us to watch this video, and then I'll be back. I'll be sharing my thoughts in regards to this. So let's keep watching. I'll be back with my thoughts.
Concept that slavery should be reinstituted. And I know you don't understand that. I know, but consider the fact that the demonization of trans people and the media started in the corners of the internet without warning, without cause, and America embraced it, accepted it. Consider the fact that the normalization of family separations, of mass deportations of American citizens themselves being detained, having no due process, no rights, started again in January in America. They also wholeheartedly embraced it, accepted it. Slavery is not next, it is now. It started, and they are coming to put you back in your black job.
Christianity played a major part in giving legitimacy to slavery. We say it casually, but remember that the cross came before the flag. When Christianity came, the version of Christianity that was brought to us was a Christianity where you are supposed to turn the other cheek. It was a Christianity where they make reference to Paul's letter to the Romans and say, obey your masters. You slaves, obey your masters as you would the Lord. So you can almost see an attempt to say that slavery is God ordained. And when they are preaching, whether it's the Catholic Church, they are now all apologizing that they were complicit in slavery. The Anglican Church is agreeing that they were complicit in slavery. The Presbyterian Church is saying that they were complicit in slavery. So the church, as we know it, the organized church from Western Europe, was part and parcel of the enslavement of Africa. And that we must never forget. And they made references to the Bible to legitimize this atrocity. So that is the reality. And the same can be said of Islam, that Islam also did recognize that there are certain people who are not believers who could therefore be enslaved. Religion, as we know it, is as guilty as guilt can be in the enslavement of peoples. And remember, it is not only African peoples who are enslaved. Even other individuals or other groups of individuals in different parts of the world were enslaved and or dehumanized. If you go to the Latin America, the Arawak people were decimated, and religion was in the forefront. In the name of God, people are enslaved. In the name of God, people were dehumanized. In the name of God, Africans were turned into things. In the name of God, Africans were turned into commodities. Organized religion has every reason to apologize to those that were enslaved.
One of the first slave ships that brought black people to the New World was named Jesus. White Christians used Bible verses and Bible stories to justify slavery. There was a time when white Christians wouldn't baptize black people because they weren't sure if it was okay to enslave Christians. They quickly changed their theology, baptized their black slaves, and forthrightly sent them back to the fields to work. 4. Both black and white prosperity preachers have scammed millions of dollars from faithful black parishioners living in American slums. 5. It is an undeniable fact that Christianity has been a tool of oppression for black people all throughout the world. And yet today, black Americans identify as Christians at a staggering 79%, higher than any other group in this country. So the question is, why are black people still Christians? And while we're at it, I actually think there's a more pressing, more existential question that needs an answer. Does God hate black people? In nearly every country on every continent around the world, darker-skinned people are treated poorly. By nearly every measurable standard, so-called black people are at the bottom of the social hierarchy everywhere. So much so that in majority black countries like Haiti and Nigeria, skin lightening creams are wildly popular. Anything to gain some proximity to whiteness and some distance from blackness. Africa is rich with natural resources, boundless human potential, unfathomable wisdom, and brilliant cultural traditions. And yet, colonial powers have pillaged, exploited, and divided nations and people in ways that are frankly irreparable, all without consequence.
And if you love Jesus, you can have a mansion in the sky, a big old mansion, the biggest mansion that you've ever seen. You can have it in the sky, and it'll be on top of a cloud, and all the streets will be made of pure gold. You'll be walking on gold streets with a big old house, and it's going to be angels. They're going to be all white. They're going to be white. They're going to be in all white, and they're going to be playing a harp. And y'all gonna be floating on the cloud with Jesus. He gonna have nail marks on his, he gonna be like a spirit. His body didn't go, but you'll still see the nail marks in his spirit. Cause he gonna be up there, and you gonna get to say, Jesus, I made it. And I got a big old mansion, right? A huge mansion. And if you don't listen to Jesus and you don't follow him, you'll be on fire. You will burn up, but you will never burn up. You will be burning, and you're going to be like, I'm on fire. And you'll be on fire for the rest of eternity. To infinity and beyond, you will be burning and burning forever if you don't listen to Jesus. But if you do listen to him, mansion, gold streets. Would you not walk on the street if it was made of gold? You would. There's gold streets everywhere. There's harps. They be playing them like this. You can have a mansion. Or if you don't listen to Jesus and you don't follow him and you say, no, Jesus, you're not real, you will burn up. But you won't never burn up. You'll just keep burning and burning. And I'm burning. But then you won't die. You'll still be already dead. And your body won't exist, but you'll be on fire. Your soul will be on fire forever. Why don't y'all believe this? Of course it's real.
Slaves weren't allowed to leave the plantation, but they were allowed to go to church. And slaves weren't allowed to read, but they were allowed to read the Bible. If this does not tell you all that you need to know about Christianity and how Christianity was used to oppress and enslave black people, I don't know what else will.
One of the first slave ships that brought black people to the New World was named Jesus. White Christians used Bible verses and Bible stories to justify slavery. There was a time when white Christians wouldn't baptize black people because they weren't sure if it was okay to enslave Christians. They quickly changed their theology, baptized their black slaves, and forthrightly sent them back to the fields to work. 4. Both black and white prosperity preachers have scammed millions of dollars from faithful black parishioners living in American slums. 5. It is an undeniable fact that Christianity has been a tool of oppression for black people all throughout the world. And yet today, Black Americans identify as Christians at a staggering 79%, higher than any other group in this country. So the question is, why are Black people still Christians? And while we're at it, I actually think there's a more pressing, more existential question that needs an answer. Does God hate Black people? In nearly every country, on every continent around the world, darker-skinned people are treated poorly. By nearly every measurable standard, so-called Black people are at the bottom of the social hierarchy everywhere. So much so that in majority Black countries like Haiti and Nigeria, skin lightening creams are wildly popular. Anything to gain some proximity to whiteness and some distance from Blackness. Africa is rich with natural resources, boundless human potential, unfathomable wisdom, and brilliant cultural traditions. And yet, colonial powers have pillaged, exploited, and divided nations and people in ways that are frankly irreparable, all without consequence. I mean, I don't know. You'd think that God would help us out a little bit. We've been through a lot, God. Maybe there's a Bible verse that we can look to. And the Lord will make you the head and not the tail. You shall be above only and not be beneath. Who is this verse about? Not only do Black people identify as Christians at a higher rate, half of Black Americans report attending church at least once a week. I was one of them. In fact, I was a pastor for a number of years. I've preached all over the country and world. I've given Bible studies. I've baptized folks. I have been in it, and these questions have been nagging me for a while. So in this video, we're going to get some answers. I talked to a couple of people. One of them is my friend Claudia.
My name is Claudia Allen.
She is easily one of the most conscious people I know. She's well-read, tapped into history and literature, a person who is thinking about race, class, and power in very critical ways. But she's also a Christian, a preacher, and a committed member of her church.
There is no other people group on the face of the planet who has experienced the kind of suffering that is akin to the life, death, and resurrection of Jesus Christ like Black and brown people. No other group.
Since she is well aware of what's happening in the world, I wanted to hear her reasons for keeping the faith. But I also spoke to Dr. Anthony B. Penn.
Well, my birth name is Anthony Bernard Penn, but most folks over the course of my life called me Tony.
He's a religious scholar, former pastor just like me, and now an atheist. And I think his perspective is important in this conversation.
Where is the historical evidence to support the claim that God is on the side of the oppressed, right? What is the historical evidence that suggests God is on the side of Black folks in North America working on their behalf? Because every moment of progress has been countered.
And if you stick around at the end, I'll share how I'm thinking about my faith today. So let's dig in.
So brothers and sisters, welcome back to the channel. This leads me to my today's discussion with you. What was the role of Christianity in perpetuating slavery, right? And so from the earliest days of transatlantic slave trade, Europeans and slavers understood that slavery was morally indefensible on its own terms. To soften their guilt and legitimize their action, they manipulated Christianity into a political tool. They selectively used biblical passages, especially those about servitude and obedience, to construct a theology that portrayed slavery as natural, divinely approved, and even beneficial to African or Black descent people, right? This ideological weapon became more powerful than chains because it allowed slaveholders to claim moral innocence while committing crimes against humanity. Now, one of the most commonly abused stories, the so-called curse of Ham, white theologians distorted this Old Testament narrative into racial myth and arguing that Africans were descendants of Ham and therefore divinely condemned to perpetual servitude. And this interpretation has a problem because it is not found anywhere in the Bible. But slave holders pushed it aggressively By turning a myth into a theology, they gave themselves a religious excuse to reduce Africans to property. It allowed them from slavery, not as theft, violence, and kidnapping, but as God's will, thus turning oppression into a sacred duty. Christian slaveholders also weaponized the New Testament. They quoted Paul's letter, "Slaves, obey your masters," without acknowledging the historical context of Roman servitude, which was fundamentally different from racialized chattel slavery. Now, by stripping the verses from context, they constructed what historians call slaveholder Christianity, a system designed to maintain obedience, a system designed to oppress, a system designed to resistance and erase African humanity. And under this system, Christianity did not serve as a path of liberation. It served as a psychological tool to make the enslaved people to accept the conditions that they were put in, brothers and sisters. So coming to think about it, try make all this pattern and understand how they used black people and how they played black people all along in this, right? So another justification was the idea of civilizing the heathen, quotes and quotes. Europeans claimed that Africans were spiritually lost, morally inferior, and incapable of governing themselves, and therefore slavery was reframed as benevolent act, a way to save Africans from paganism and bring them into Christian world. This humanitarian disguise allowed white enslavers to hide their economic motives behind the language of salvation. They presented themselves as missionaries, even though they whipped, raped, dehumanized the very people they claimed to be uplifting. This contradiction formed the moral foundation of white supremacy within the Christian doctrine. In addition to that, the church in Europe and America actively supported the slave system. Many denominations owned slaves, invested in slave plantation, or preached doctrines that aligned with slaveholder interest. Clergy members wrote sermons defending racial hierarchies and condemning slave revolts as sin against God. Church institutions benefited financially from slavery, which meant they had vested interest in protecting it. And as a result, Christianity became institutionalized as a racial tool, not just as a belief system, but as an economic engine that justified black suffering for a white profit. All of these have been used to make profit at the end of the day, because that's what they want. It's all about the profit. It's not even about the humanity. It's not even about the scriptures. It's about profits, because that's all they ever wanted to make. That's all they ever wanted. Right. Now, Christianity, however, given to enslaved people was not Christianity they accepted. Enslaved Africans reinterpreted the Bible through their own eyes, identified with stories of liberation such as Moses leading the Israelites out of bondage. They rejected slaveholders' theology and built a spiritual tradition rooted in resistance, hope, and dignity. Spiritual secrets, prayers, and black churches became weapons of psychological liberation. This distinction is critical because Christianity did not justify slavery. White interpretation of Christianity did. And I think that should be clear. Christianity did not justify slavery, white interpretation did the interpretation. White interpretation is the one that did and perpetuated slavery, a problem that we are seeing happening even today. In conclusion, Christianity was used as a political, it was used as economical and psychological weapon to legitimize racial slavery. It allowed white enslavers to cloak violence in holiness to, portray themselves as moral while committing atrocities. The manipulation of scripture was not an accident. It was a deliberate strategy to control black minds, justify white dominance. It was a deliberate strategy to control black minds, justify white dominance, and build an empire on stolen labor. So understanding this part of history reveals how religion can be corrupted by power, and why black people worldwide should continue to interrogate the legacy of a faith that was once used to cage their bodies while failing to control their spirits. Brothers and sisters, I'm your host and presenter Talk Stories. And if you're watching me for the first time, I'm just asking you to please subscribe to the channel, join the membership, and really get to see what I can offer you. But until then, let me see you in my next video. Peace, love, and harmony. Salute.